Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about SAS Proc Freq. To calculate the frequency, you need to know something about categorical variables. So there are two types of categorical variables. One is called nominal, another one is called ordinal. Based on some people's definition, the ordinal data are not really categorical, but we are not trying to pursue the academic excellence, so we are just leave like that. So for nominal data, in general you can see things like gender, for example male or female, so they are not really in order, right? Same thing with postal code, zip code in the US. In Canada, we also use RISC FSA. Basically, it's the first three letters of the postal code. You can see some definition on the right, which I actually use very often in banking. The second part is something called ordinal. So something you can order in a certain way. It can be both character or numeric. For example, when you send out some kind of survey, and then you get customer satisfaction. Some customer can be very satisfied or neutral, or they are just extremely dissatisfied, right? So same thing with credit risk score or grade. You can have A or B or C. So you can order them in a certain way. And the last part is the educational level. You can rank them. You can see maybe PhD is better than master or better than bachelor degree. It's how you rank it. It's up to you. Even in here, by no means the PhD is just way much better than master. But anyway, so there are two types of category variables. You can group them, and you can see their frequency, and so the Proc Freq actually comes in very handy. So let's take this example. So we have account ID, which I put them as character, and the second part is the account type. So you can see this one is nominal because you don't need to rank the account type, right? Checking is checking, and saving. Same thing with HELOC. And for credit risk rating, you can actually it's ordinal data. So because you have a grade, for example A and B or C, but balance is just numeric data. So this is the type of data we're going to work through with in this video. So the credit risk reading is something I want to make a little comment that it sometimes can apply at account level. For example, for this account, for the checking, maybe the risk is really low, so you have a high risk rating because usually when you have a checking account, there's very little risk. Sometimes you can have a B rating because you may have an overdraft, and overdraft basically means your account is kind of protected. Let's say you write a check and you don't have enough money in your bank, so your balance become negative. So overdraft actually prevent that without like failure, right? So when you have overdraft, there's a little risk to the bank, so your credit rating could go with B, right? So those are account types, and then you're gonna have the credit risk rating. So let's see how the Proc Freq will help us. So when you have the data here, basically the same data you see in the previous slide, and you run a Proc Freq, right? So this first part is the data, and then the second part is the output from the Proc Freq, right? So the Proc Freq actually does for every single variable, both character and also numeric. But you can see from here that it doesn't make any sense for me to do a frequency on the account ID because they are just unique. You can see all the frequency are basically one. But it's more meaningful to work on the those categorical data, basically the second one and the third one. And same thing with balance. I mean, there's really no point to do a frequency on the balance. So what we want to do is to remove the first one or and also the last one, or alternative, is basically you select the two in the middle. So by selecting the two in the middle, what you do is you put a table statement. It's table, it's not var, it's just table in Proc Freq, and then you do a table and you give a column name for the first one, account type, and the second column name, credit risk rating. So you're gonna see those two tables on the right. So we basically removed the account ID and also the balance, which doesn't make any sense to do a frequency on them, right? So just remember, use the table statement here. In this part, you'll notice that when you do proc frequency, it doesn't including the missing values. So I added two missing values on purpose. So you can see from here you have 7 variables, but in here when you do the proc frequency, you only see 6 variables, basically 3 plus 1 plus 2, same thing with 411, right? So it tells you the missing values has 1, but doesn't give you any information on the frequency or the percent and or cumulative frequency. So those 4 variables actually comes as a default. You might find those very helpful. If you don't find those helpful, you can also drop them. I'm going to show you later, right? So basically, in this slide, I want to show you that the missing value actually is not calculated as part of the frequency calculation. Okay. So to identify the missing values, you can add the n levels, basically produce this table. You can see here, right under the frequency procedure. So you can see in account type, same thing with credit risk rating, you have basically 4 levels. So there's 1 missing level. So you can see when I say levels, basically the distinct value of this category. So this is more visible for you to identify the missing values, and then you can make a decision whether to including the missing values or just exclude it, right? So if you do want to include the missing values, you can put a slash after a table. Sometimes I see people write like right after the data, which is not the right place. So you put a table and you give the variables you want, and you put a slash and you put a missing here. In general speaking, in SAS, they usually put a missing on the top. You can see that in proc frequency, proc means, and several other places. So you can see the missing here as part of the frequency calculation, also as part of the cumulative frequency calculation. So if you do want to include the missing values, but most of the time you probably want to do something with the missing value, maybe you assign to a default or just try to remove them. But so in the real world, you might just try to address that. So this is just show you you can do something with the missing value. Okay. So the next part, you can choose to order them by the frequency. Sometimes you want to see the most frequent on the top. Again, the missing values usually is on the top, and then for the other categories, you can see is ordered by the frequency. Basically, checking, you can see has it occurred 3 times, so it's on the second line, and same thing with saving on the second, on the 2 on the third line, and with HELOC it's basically at the last. Same thing with here. You have ABC. It's happened that way, but actually it's ordered by the frequency. So it's up to you how you're gonna display the output. Alternatively, you can save this output to a data set and then use proc print or proc report to display the data in a way you like. Okay, so this is basically show you can set order by frequency. If you don't put that, this will be ordered by the alphabetical order. Okay, so this is another thing you can do here is basically create a chart. The most common one at work, basically just maybe bar chart or line chart. We don't go anything that is really fancy. Usually we don't go with 3D. It's just hard to read, right? So you may think that's cool to create some 3D charts, but it's not really good for some managers, to view them. So the basic bar chart will work. Sometimes you may want to put some colors on that. This color is too light, I guess. It's just created by the default. So when I work with SAS, I usually create bar charts. So when I work with SAS, usually I open the SAS EG. SAS EG actually works better than SAS, the Windows environment, basically SAS based. For at least for doing the chart, right? So in the SAS EG, you have the option to select the chart you like. Basically, just click it, right? So and then select certain options and then create the chart. You don't have to remember all the details, in coding, right? So when you create the chart through the SAS EG, I found that's very useful. And then at last, you have option to save the code, like the program, right? So once you have that program, you can look at it, and then you can try to make some modification to see how that will affect the chart, right? And then use that code and try to customize it. Maybe you can put that as part of your Marco and make things automated, right? So you create a chart. Sometimes I create charts. I put some reports for other people, and also maybe sometimes I send the email. So the proc frequency can help you to create certain type of charts. When you work with the SAS Studio, it gives you many options with the autocomplete. So yeah, it's very simple. You just put a slash, you put a plot, and in this case, I put a frequency plot, and you are more than welcome to try different charts, right? So I just show you this chart. It's more visible, and it's easier for me to understand, also to memorize, right? So to create the bar charts. Another thing you want to see in the SAS Proc Freq is that you may want to see the relationship between two variables, right? So in the first Proc Freq, you're gonna see in separate tables, but sometimes you want to see the relationships, right? So what you want to do is you put a star. You put a star between those two variables. You want to see, if you want to see three variables, basically called three-way table, you can put the first variable with a start, and the second variable with another star, and then third variable, right? So, but in this case, we only have two variables. So you're gonna see on the right, we have checking, and with grade rating as A, right? So you can see from this table that the grade rating A mainly for checking and saving, and same thing with B, and you have checking, and for C we'll have a HELOC. So you can see them as some type of relationship if you prefer to see it this way. So this is something called two-way table. You might find that can be useful. There are quite a lot of numbers here. So for example, the 2 actually relates to the frequency, and then this A is the second line, basically 33.33 is the percent, basically is the 2 divided by the total number here, which will be 6. That's how you get the 33%. Again, the missing value is not included by default, and you can also have a row percentage. For example, for this row in checking, so they have 2 out of 3, so you have 66%. Same thing with column percentage. So by default, you're gonna have those 4 numbers. If you don't like them, you can drop them. For example, if you want to drop the column and the row, all you want to know is the overall percentage. So you just in here you say slash no column, no row, and then you're gonna see a table like this. It's a little bit simpler and make it easier to read. If you don't need the percentage at the row or column level. Okay. If you want to go a little further, you don't want to even see percentage. All you want to see is frequency. You can just say no column, no row, no percent. So that will give you a table like this. It's actually it's even simpler, right? So this is basically the two-way table. Some people might find it useful. Some people may like something like this. Basically, you put a slash with a list. You still can see the relationship between the two tables, but just in a different way. This is more like a group by. So you take those two variables, basically side by side, and then you have a table like this. So it really depends on how you want to view the data, and so this procedure basically help you to analyze the data and understand your data a little bit better. So it's really based on your preference, and you can use either two-way or three-way table, or you can use a list, right? Or you can use something called a Crosslist. You have other options to view this as well. So in the Crosslist, you can see everything all together here, and then you're gonna have a subtotal for each. Again, it's all based on your preference, right? So if you like this table, you can try a Crosslist. So you will see a table like this. You will see a table like this for frequency. Again, the missing value is very important. Whenever you see a missing value, you need to address it, right? So you don't want to leave the way it is, right? So this is for two-way frequency. And for the last part, you can create different chart for the two-way frequency. In this part, I'm using the mosaic plot, which I found to be very useful. It's very pleasant to view. So you can see in the grid A, you have checking and saving, and in grid B, you can see the color basically it's kind of light green. So and basically this is checking, right? So HELOC, you can see a different color, and is that burgundy, or I don't know what the color that is. And then you have the HELOC. So this table actually is more pleasant to view than the table on the top. You can try different plots. You can type in different settings, or you can try a better chart with if you do have a SAS EG, or you can try that on SAS Studio as well if they do have that feature. That's about it for proc frequency. So let's go to the code. Let's run this data. So I'm going to run the whole thing, right? So you're going to see the proc frequency table, and then you see the plot at the end. The code is very straightforward. Basically, same thing you see in the PPT. You create a data set, and then just basically run a proc frequency. In the plot, you have different options. You can put a equal sign. You can see you have all those options. It's based on what you need, or maybe what the manager wants to see. So you can try different options. It's a very useful tool, and so that's about it. And I hope you learned something about proc frequency. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.